If you want to enjoy the new setup of Blizzard and Ice Spikes with the patch 1.2 on the Season 2 of Diablo IV, I made a full update to my Sorceress with this new patch in order to have a very good Season 2. I'll explain everything in that video, and if it's not done already, don't forget to subscribe, and big thanks for that. Starting with the skill, you'll be playing Frostbolt in order to generate mana. Of course, Blizzard as our main spell, and Inferno in order to pull enemies but also to apply burning. You have Teleport for the mobility, Ice Armor for the barrier, and Flame Shield for the immune. For the enchantment, we'll be playing Ice Shards and Frozen Orb in order to automatically cast these spells. For the stats and the aspects, first one, you have a chance to spread crowd control effects, and you'll want on it cooldown reduction, crowd control direction, some mana and intelligence. For the armor, the unique one, which will pull enemies with teleport, and for the gloves, the fact that Blizzard will spawn ice packs. You also want on it critical strike chance, attack speed, lucky hit and ranks of Frozen Orb. It's very important to have ranks of Blizzard on it, damage reduction, intelligence, and then you want some armor when you do damage. We'll also be playing Asus boots in order to have increased critical strike chance, and for the weapon, the fact that you have an additional stack of avalanche K passive. You want on it mastery damage, critical strike damage, intelligence, and damage on slowed enemies. For the second weapon, you'll want critical strike chance, intelligence, damage reduction from enemies which are burning, and lucky chance when you have a barrier. You also want increased damage based on your resource at the aspect. For the ring, first one, increase critical strike chance on core on mastery when you have more than 100 mana, and the second one, the new one, a chance to create ice packs when you damage an enemy. That's why it's interesting to also have this automatically trigger spells in order to proc this effect. For the stats, you'll want critical strike chance, damage, cold damage, and damage to shield enemies. Lastly, for the amulet, increase damage to enemies which are vulnerable when you have a barrier, and you can take on it rank of mastery skills, damage reduction, and first skill damage. It's important to understand that it's not nerf in the patch with 20% ratio, because it's not an affix which increases your vulnerable damage. That's why in the affixes, as you can see, there's no increased vulnerable damage because this one has been nerfed. Otherwise, you can go for this one, it will be very good. For the Vampiric powers, you also have a good example, this one increasing damage to vulnerable enemies. So the idea is to take this kind of synergies, but we won't be playing affix increasing vulnerable damage. Then you have increased attack speed based on your movement speed. This one to reduce the cooldown, it's important to get this 20% cooldown on your ultimate because it's our only source of burning, and then we have this one increasing damage to frozen enemies. You also have, lastly, this one, cooldown reduction of one of your spells when you learn 5 basic attack. You can also go for the damage reduction based on your life if you want, but this one will allow you, as we'll still have some basic attacks to reduce one of your cooldown every 5 attacks. For the gems, you want critical strike damage to crowd control enemies, additional life, and resistances if you don't have the cap of 70%. If you have the cap, simply swap these resistances to skulls. Now for the skill tree, 2 points in order to unlock our core spells, so Frozen Orb and the fact that it will make enemies vulnerable, Ice Shards and the fact that enemies will be treated as frozen when you have a barrier, increase damage for core and mastery skills, and increase elemental resistance. Also, waiting for you to get some mana on your helm, you can put 2 points here instead in the meantime. Then we have Flame Shield with healing, Teleport with damage reduction, Barrier with increased value on vulnerable enemies when you do damage, Lucky Hit chance, Blizzard with increased duration, and critical strike damage on burning enemies. Finally, you have these points increasing your cold damage, our ultimate, and of course avalanche K passive. Let's finish with the Paragon, and first one increasing mastery skills and increased area. Then we have our first board, critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies, which is quite strong with our build. This glyph increasing damage to shield enemies, you can also get this passive just here. And moving on to the next board, this glyph increasing damage to burning enemies, and this one increasing damage to vulnerable enemies. Below you have this glyph which will increase your non-physical damage, and this one just here, increasing your enchantment value. Lastly, we go back just here and we have this glyph, which will increase your damage to crowd control targets. We won't get this node, it's not interesting, but we also have some good passives just here, increase damage reduction from burning enemies and increase damage to burning enemies. So as you can see, even in the Paragon you have plenty of good synergy with vulnerable, and we don't build on this additional vulnerable damage. Thanks for watching this video. I hope that you'll have plenty of fun on this Blizzard Sorceress, which will be quite strong for the new season on the patch 1.2.